To my future wife, Part 3, an open letter, broken hand. February 15th, 2024, 4:20 p.m. Dear Grace, normally about this far into a project, like this letter to you, I give up. I move on to my next concept and forget my current great idea. This time is different. Every time I see a video of Rob alone in his tent, it pisses me off, and I'm unable to help him, either directly with cash or views on YouTube. The only way I can help Rob or others is to succeed in something myself. Writing these letters to you seems like a success. I don't know why, Grace. Maybe if I don't give up, they'll come together in a story that'll eventually someone will notice. Or not. Either way, I'm getting it out of my system, Grace. Thank you for your part of the inspiration. On the other hand, I'm confused. I love some aspects of YouTube, but I fail to understand why some channels like Rob's remain slow to gain followers, when similar channels thrive, go viral, and help the individual in need. When I first started the Substack page, Grace, I used an electronic voice for my... When I first started the Substack page, Grace, I used an electronic voiceover for my movie ideas. I hated the sound of my own voice, and still do. I'm not officially mute, Grace, but I rarely speak. In 2023, I had one consensual conversation with my kid that lasted an hour, and a 10-minute forced interaction with a doctor at a hospital when I accidentally broke my hand. For the rest of the year, and part of 2022, I spoke to nobody longer than it takes to order a cup of coffee. I could have ordered the coffee online, I suppose, but I'd like to check and see that I could still speak, at least once a day. I could speak to myself outside. Everyone is wearing earbuds now, so I wouldn't look crazy, and it would exercise my voice. But I like to read out loud, not babble out loud. I suppose I could practice my stand-up routine as I walk. But I think I mentioned before, I'm not going to practice out loud. I'm going to go on stage and take my chances. If I'm correct, I will have saved a ton of time by not practicing. If I fail, what's the difference? The odds of failing the first time doing an open mic are probably 99%. I made that number up, Grace. I didn't Google it because nobody cares about the failure rate of comics, except comics, and none of them are scientists. I spoke a lot when I broke my hand. I even remembered swear words from childhood, which is appropriate in my case, as I live a bit like a child, Grace. I do force myself to record the voiceover. I find there's a certain truth in the spoken word when it's your own written words, when it's your own written word spoken aloud. I think Grace authors used to read their entire book to audiences who couldn't afford to buy the book. I may be wrong about this fact. I don't like to stop and Google when I write, but I do believe this occurred. I'm not sure I could do this. Once I've recorded my letter to you, Grace, and hit publish, I'm not interested in repeating those words. Hunter S. Thompson typed out The Great Gatsby to learn how to write like the masters. I believe it's possible to do the same simply through reading, but only if you read one person exclusively. I tried to learn how to write first-person active voice by reading every Dean Koontz novel written in that style. It worked to a degree, but in the end all I wanted to write was the same weird shit he creates. I learned his skill, but was enchanted by his stories and wanted to duplicate them instead of create my own. My solution, Grace, was to reprogram my brain by sitting on a park bench a few hours a day, smoking a little weed, or a lot, and reading passages from my personal handwritten notebooks out loud. I tried the same technique at home in my room, but it doesn't work. I'm concerned someone will hear my words through the door and at the most out-of-context time possible. At the park, I feel I'm free to scream if I like, but I don't. At the park, I'm free to scream if I like. I don't, but I also don't feel shy like at home. Around the time I stopped speaking, Grace, I stopped all reading, except as described above. I realized to have my own voice, I can have no other influences in my head, and the greatest influences in my past life were all authors. The collective group of them shaped my writing, but if I continued to read any single one of them, I would lose my individuality. To be clear, Grace, I'm not saying I'll never read another book. I will when I'm ready. My discovery was if I read my words out loud and record myself, I hear which sentences sound like me and which are influenced by others. As long as the majority sounds like me, I'm happy. I'll publish. I do miss reading, but my solution is closed captions. I turn them on everywhere and read the screen as much as listening to dialogue. For whatever reason, probably because I'm also watching the action, I don't absorb the style of the writer. Or maybe because I'm done trying to write movie ideas. Or maybe because TV and movies are often written by groups of writers. I'm not sure, Grace. Any ideas? Anyway, without the masters like Ayn Rand on my bookshelf/Kindle, I'm left to think on my own. It's taken a year to clear their influence. Rob's videos are truthful and honest. It's all the inspiration I need to get a new story or two from Rob daily. Plus, it's easier than trying to push through reading Atlas Shrugged for the umpteenth time. I'm not sure if you've read it, Grace, but a book of that size and magnitude could not be a success today. It should be, but unless the concept can be reduced to a TikTok video, it has no hope. 8:33 p.m. When I still worked and was eating a ketogenic diet, I splurged, Grace. I ate tons of chicken wings, steak, eggs, cheese, and my favorite, dried sausage. I'd carry around sticks of them in my backpack and gnaw on them like a caveman throughout the day. However, now I do poor man keto consisting of Walmart hot dogs boiled in coconut oil. $5 for a package of 24 of the lowest quality wieners possible, but it still works. I don't have the variety of meat I had, but I use different spices and hot sauces to keep it interesting. Over the last couple of years, I've probably bought 100 packages of these hot dogs, Grace. I realize that's at least 2,400 wieners I've put in my mouth recently. If I was gay and doing that on OnlyFans, I'd be rich. 9:15 p.m. Here's my thought of the day for you, Grace. I think there should be an option for anonymous therapy, AT. I see two scenarios where not only is it anonymous, it's held in complete darkness so neither party sees each other, or an extremely plain/sterile room with a divider to block the view. Why? I'm glad you asked, Grace. February 16, 2024, 2:04 p.m. Hi, Grace. I thought about this more last night and fine-tuned my concept of AT. Patient-driven therapy might be a better description, but AT sounds better than PDT. With AT, the patient can choose the environment they are most open to express their feelings. As an example, Grace, my environment would be a completely blacked out room with two comfortable chairs about 5 feet apart. In my scenario, a psychiatrist and I would be led into the room blindfolded and at different times. We would never visually see the other person. An assistant would indicate to us when the room was empty of others, and then we would remove our masks and talk in complete, zero-light darkness. Why? Good question, Grace. I like your questions. I hope one day you'll ask them to me in person. After we meet, Grace, I'll probably never go to a therapist/psychologist/school counselor/anyone for advice ever again, unless you drive me nuts, Grace. Please don't. Please be more normal than I am. I'll play the crazy, you be the straight man, but please be female. However, I have gone to therapy in the past. In my case, I found the professionals completely unable to remember my file from appointment to appointment. I understand they have multiple clients, but for me it's not an excuse. I'm only interested in sharing my story with someone who can remember it, without having to review his notes to refresh his shitty memory about my boring-ass story. Not for me, Grace. There are intelligent individuals who can remember and use their brain power. If I'm ever in need, this is who I want, regardless of how many degrees are on their wall or how fancy their office is. I want someone who remembers me, my story, and not using my face or my clothes or my body language as part of the diagnosis. I know who I am, how I look, and how I act. It has nothing to do with my story, which I'm telling you, doctor, to help me, the patient. Fuck body language, Grace. Too many people overread everything, and I'm a perfect example as I show my emotions on my face, unless I remember to be stoic. If I'm going to an appointment with a doctor or somebody, I automatically go into flat face mode. Unfortunately, when the meeting gets heated and goes off the rails, My face gives my emotions away. Even when I write at Starbucks Grace, I notice my facial expressions changing during emotional parts of the story. I've cried in Starbucks Grace, but luckily nobody noticed. Starbucks is basically anonymous. Occasionally you'll find an excellent barista who remembers your regular order, but normally the clerk looks at you like you've never seen them before, even if you're there every day at the same time. Hello, how may I help you? Like a robot. Anyway, for me, my choice is a room as close to an isolation chamber as possible, with no outside visual influences. In fact, if I could do the session in 2 float tanks with an audio interface between them, that would be my choice. If I trusted the professional counseling me, I may let them record the session audio, but on the other hand, I don't want to give them a crutch at all. I want them focused on me, the patient, which I believe, Grace, is what they should be doing. In this dark room, and without ever seeing the person attempting to help me, I'd be comfortable talking about nearly anything. What about you, Grace? Too creepy? I realize this sounds a bit like the confessional in the Catholic Church, and it's probably because I was raised Catholic. However, I have no problem with the concept of confession. I have a problem with it not being anonymous, and creepy priests using this information to whack off at night. Take away the sins, and make it a place where you can bitch and complain anonymously about your life for 15 to 30 minutes a week to another human being without seeing the judgment in their eyes, and maybe it's a pretty good system. Maybe some people would come back to an anonymous church. Plus, it's easier than trying to work out your frustrations on Twitter. But the concept of pretending the priest is anonymous is stupid. He's not, unless he's an idiot who can't recognize a voice without a face attached. Unlikely. Anyway, Grace, my concept is the extreme. Many people are fine with the current environment offered and wouldn't be forced into an odd situation like I'm describing. However, why couldn't this be an option? What is wrong with talking in the dark? If both parties agree, who cares as long as the patient receives help? Also, the patient could use their therapist by reading an also, the patient could choose their therapist by reading anonymous reviews, or they can be matched via AI by entering their story anonymously into the system via voice or written word. The more they share, the more accurately the AI can provide a match. Anytime the patient is unhappy with the choice of professional, they can dump them and move on. Since it's anonymous, no hard feelings on either side. The goal is to improve the mental well-being of the client. Any professional interest in helping others should understand. There are some online sites that are close to this, where you can simply say you don't have a webcam and do audio-only therapy, and I like those options too. I'll think about 18 more, Grace, and get back to you. I'm getting closer to writing you a letter a day, Grace. I feel like I'm in an old war movie where I'm writing you not knowing if you'll ever receive it. It's fun since I don't actually have to worry about dying in battle, and I have no idea if you will read this, Grace. I have nothing to lose, everything to gain by trying. Again, like Rob with his videos. He earns nothing yet, but he continues to post. So will I. Or maybe I'll never die, Grace. I'm in good health. Too good for my age. Other than one hearing issue and sleeping like a cat, I'm healthy enough to make it to the singularity, where immortality is possible. Assuming I don't get hit by a bus. I should probably describe my physical appearance, Grace, but I don't care about yours, so why? I mean, I care if you have a huge mole on your face like that lady I saw on the train yesterday. If you have, please burn it off. I don't need perfection, just normal. Please burn it off, but I don't need perfection, just normal. In my movie ideas, I lie and describe my character as an incredibly attractive middle-aged man. In truth, I'm mostly normal looking. Some would say I look a bit autistic, but that's only because I use a backpack to carry my computer. It's logical, not autistic. Plus, I shop daily. I need the backpack. Plastic bags are outlawed in BC. I'm normal looking with a bad haircut. In fact, no haircut. I cut my own hair. I'm not against haircuts, just cheap. Once we get together, Grace, I'll splurge and get a trim, if my hair embarrasses you. If the rest of me and these letters don't embarrass you, I doubt my looks will. And if you don't like my autistic backpack, then we can't be together. It's a part of me. Once again, I'm sharing serious topics with you, Grace, when I should be writing jokes and preparing to get on stage. On the other hand, these letters force me to talk daily, which is what I'll need to do if I ever get to the comedy club. So thank you, Grace, whoever you are, whatever you are doing on this day. I'll tend to end this and all these letters with at least one funny event in my life, or at least one funny to me. I'm sure I'll offend half the readers. I don't care. If you're still reading this third letter, Grace, I doubt I've offended you. I mentioned I broke my right hand a few months ago. During the experience, I learned how stupid my left hand is/was. To be fair, untrained is a better word. I failed to train my left hand to be a backup for the right. What I first noticed, Grace, is it's impossible to wipe your butt when you can't bend your wrist. I could hold the paper with the 3 still available fingers, but couldn't get to the destination while sitting on the toilet. I eventually realized that if I stood up, it changed the angle of attack and I could manage with the right. Before I figured out that very simple solution, I gave the left hand a shot. First, I almost fell off the toilet when I lifted my left cheek instead of my right. I've never done that before and I didn't know the toilet seat was loose. I nearly broke something more than a hand. Second, Lefty had no idea where the hole is. It was like he knew it was there, but never took the path before and didn't know where to start. Technically, I was in control of my hand, Grace, but it felt like I was clueless, or it was clueless. I/it/we felt around for a while until making contact, but then it was more like trying to grab rather than wipe the fecal matter. It knew what it was after, but had no clue how to capture it gracefully. Maybe I'm crazy, Grace, because I found myself explaining to my left hand what to do. I told it to envision how the right hand does it and try again. It kind of worked, but 3 days later, after Lefty got his shit together and learned how to wipe, I realized the standing up trick and reverted back to my right hand, retiring Lefty permanently. I realized how shitty that story was, Grace, and how punny I write sometimes. Maybe I am autistic. Why would I share a story about crap to my future wife? It seems a bit odd. On the other hand, when we are married and have children, we'll have plenty of shit to deal with from the babies. It's endless. One final note, Grace. On my way to the park, there's some graffiti that says, "Linda, I love you forever." And every time I walk by, I wonder who is Linda. It's an old librarian name. Odd to be the subject of graffiti. I also wonder why, I assume he didn't use a comma after Linda. I think it's more impactful with the pause. What do you think, Grace? Which do you prefer? Grace, I will love you forever, or Grace, I will love you forever. Which do you prefer? I'm tempted to add the comma for him, but he used an odd color, a dirty pink, and I don't think I can match it. I guess he used anything pink to be romantic, but do you wear pink, Grace? Did you wear a bright pink outfit for Valentine's Day yesterday? I'm assuming you work, Grace? Not that it matters if you work or wear pink. I'll love you either way. Just no moles. Thank you for listening, Grace. David.